Obsidian Flames is just under a month away from being released, and we know already 21 Pokemon EX, so I figured that this is probably going to be most of the EXs that we're going to have in this set, so what better to do than do a good old-fashioned tier list and rank them all. So first, give me the F tier. These are Pokemon that are going to see very little play, if anything, but are just very underpowered cards in general. So I'll open it up with putting Koraidon and Miraidon EX on this list, and yes, Koraidon and Miraidon are already getting another EX card and only 3 sets in. Both of them are incredibly underpowered. Miraidon doing 150 damage for 3 energies. It's just the other Miraidon EX is so much better and is built in consistency. And the other Koraidon for 3 energies can do 230, but there's just the other Koraidon that does the same amount of damage and has energy acceleration, so these cards are really just never going to see any play at all. Melmetal EX is a bit more intriguing because it does have 300 HP, but the attacks is what holds it back a little bit. It can attach more energies to itself, and it can its attack just more damage for each metal it has attached. With only 90 base damage, you're going to need to have a ton of energies piled up just to take a knockout. So I suppose you could try to do some silly stuff with Magnezone, but at that point, why wouldn't you just play Dialga and be able to take the extra turns? Greedent EX is really bad. Its first attack lets you dig a bit deeper into the deck. The second attack doing 210, but could shut it off next turn. So there's really no reason to play this card over Oinkologne. Oinkologne is just better in every single way. Has an actually good first attack. So and the Terrestrial effect gives this thing no bonus. So yeah, Greedent really is very bad, which is a shame because I actually quite like Greedent as a Pokemon, but Pokemon keep shafting it with a ton of bad cards. Dragonite EX, I had high hopes for a Terastallized Dragonite. I thought they'd finally give Dragonite another good card. No such luck. It's not even a good Regidrago partner. Second attack does 140 damage, then flip a coin if heads 140 more. If tails, you cannot attack next turn, so 50% chance of 280 is a hard pass in my books. Greninja EX would probably be better if it was not a stage 2 and there wasn't so much good water Pokemon around right now. It is 120 damage and 120 more if our opponent's active Pokemon is damaged. But there's Pokemon that do more damage than this for the same amount of energy on a basic, so there's really no reason to ever consider Greninja. Decidueye has a cool ability if it was on a basic. It's the same thing as like old Russian Keldeo, but it's on a stage 2 and only doing 130 damage for any stage 2 is just really underwhelming. Mabostiff, however you pronounce it, this dog is just pretty underwhelming, doing 220 damage for 3 energies. If it were another one of those things, it has Dark Patch, has double turbo energy. If it was on a basic, it'd be a lot better. Like, that's just kind of the recurring trend for these F tier Pokemon. They're just too slow like on a basic, they'd actually be fast enough to truly utilize these attacks, but on a stage 1, it'll take at least 1 turn to get these going. So now onto the D tier. D tier is going to be things that have some sort of potential, but are currently lacking the support to be actually viable. First up in D tier, I'm going to put a Victini and Clefable EX. Victini EX has honestly a pretty cool second attack that is 220, but on a basic this time. And we have Magma Basin, so this is probably going to be another toy for like the Ceruledge deck, which isn't really that viable right now, but I think it could be in the future. And Clefable does have some synergy with the Lost Origin Clefable, or Clefairy, that spreads the energies everywhere. It gives those Pokemon free retreats, so you can dance between those Clefairies a lot easier. The attack really isn't anything worth noting, just as it's just something new for that deck, which is a deck that's just pretty much obscure because the Lost Inbox exists, so it is a nice toy for that deck, but I don't think it's going to really go anywhere. Palmot EX actually is a pretty cool second attack for just 2 energies, being able to do 220 snipe, but Manaphy's in format, it's on a stage 2, maybe if after rotation or something, if there's no longer Manaphy in format or something, that maybe sure this thing can see some play, but right now I just can't really see it. Houndoom has a pretty interesting attack, which for 2 darks does 90, and if any Pokemon is a basic, they cannot attack. Or it can do, 220 for 3 energies, but so maybe this honestly could be an F tier. I thought that first attack might be worth exploring a little bit, being able to lock down basic Pokemon, but the format is quite evolution heavy. It does have some potential though. On to C tier, these are cards that might be worth adding into new archetypes as tech cards, or just are things that maybe could be a solid like tier 2 tech rogue archetype. The first thing is Ice-Q EX, which is a fire type, so actually a different odd type terrestrial Pokemon, but still attacks for water energies, being able to do 160 damage. So gives Baxcalibur decks a way to hit for fire weakness. So Currently there's not anything that'd be useful for, but in the future, if there's ever like a good metal or grass type deck that HN Pow deck, for example, would need to hit for weakness, then Ice Cube could be a card definitely worth playing. Houndstone, as an attack, does 160 damage, and then 10 more for each evolve, or for each psychic Pokemon we have in the discard pile. Since it's a psychic, we can use the Gardevoir Psychic Embrace to accelerate energies to it, and we can use Curlia's Refinement to get psychic Pokemon into this card pile, so we can potentially reach some pretty big numbers with Houndstone. Just the reason why I say it's higher is Gardevoir EX already is so good, so I don't really know like why you would actually ever play Houndstone. Like I just think it's probably making the deck worse, but maybe I'm wrong. I think Houndstone could be worth messing around with in Gardevoir at the very least. I thought Tyranitar would be cool because there's like a throwback to the old EX series Tyranitar. Maybe hopefully have like some cool thing. If they brought back the Shockwave counter thing, I would have been so happy. But no, I'm pretty disappointed, honestly. Being able to do 250 for 2 energies is quite neat, but if it actually attack with dark energies, I'd be so much more happy, because then we could use the other Tyranitar from how to get evolved and be able to hit lightning and dark weakness all in the same deck. But now you can't really do that because this one attacks with fighting energies, so I guess maybe you can do some things like luminous energy, but I just think this is probably going to be too clunky, too slow. The damage is there, it's just that it's probably going to be too clunky and slow to actually be a tippy-top meta deck, in my opinion. And Glamora is really cool. That ability being able to shut your opponent down to just 3 bench Pokemon if it's in the active spot is really neat. But it has to be inactive, so that's a bit of a drawback. They can just gust or rope around it. But there's like Lost Stone Box and Lugia that love to have imagine a Lugia, they can't even bench like 2 Pokemon, or they can't get double Archeops now. Like that seems pretty cool. So this Pokemon actually had a good attack. This would be really awesome. But just being able to do 140 for 2 energies and poison is not going to cut it. I know Fighting Weakness is okay right now to hit into Arceus and Miraidon, but the damage is just simply too low. Like, you're not even 2-shotting in some cases, which is a bit disappointing. So now on to B tier. These are cards that I think have a lot more potential, could be their own standalone decks, or just have just obvious potential somewhere. I may be overrating Absol as a control player, but I think that just that first stack, being able to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, is actually pretty cool. I know it seems sort of weird and underpowered, but imagine in a controlling style deck, you could Iono your opponent down to just a couple cards, and then you can put this in active spot, put a Luminous Energy, put a Bravery Charm on it, and then be able to just put your opponent automatically on a bad top deck. So even if your opponent hits his Absol back, we can then go into, we can pick this thing up with a Penny, and then start doing some sort of milling or controlling or locking strategy that way. I think Control has some new toys to play with in this set. More on that in just a bit, but Absol is definitely something new to mess around with. Like, I think it probably has some potential somewhere. Control, maybe, I don't know, Control might still just not be viable after Stadium Flames, but we'll have to see. And Revavroom is a pretty, I mean, it has the same ability as the Honchkrow B, that can have up to 4 tools on it. So this is pretty awesome because there's new tools coming out in the 151 set. There's like there's one tool that I think gives stage 1 like 30 more HP, and then there's like a leftovers tool that heals, could heal you. And the drawbacks to this I can see is Path to the Peak just knocks off all your tools, and Path to the Peak is still a very relevant card in the current format. And then also there's no metal energy acceleration, so there really isn't a good way to get 3 energies on this guy, and then 170 isn't really amazing damage. Of course, that wouldn't really matter too much if you're tanking like a Menace, but just having to attach 3 turns, like I know you can play Magnezone, but just playing, I'm already playing a ton of tool cards. I don't want to be playing Rare Candy and another evolution line. I'd like to be consistent, so if it hasn't got some valid energy acceleration, it definitely could vault up a couple tiers. Just right now, without any metal energy acceleration and a bit subpar damage, I think Revavroom made his B tier. And finally, A tier, we have things that have just very obvious potential. I should see play right away. I'm putting Cloth EX in A tier. I think that just the ability on Cloth EX is really awesome, because if it gets damage from an attack, our opponent has to discard an energy from their active Pokemon. So it's sort of like Absol, we can put a Bravery Charm on this guy, pump it up to 270 HP. So that's pretty tough to knock out, and if our opponent just hits into it, they get punished. So like an RC deck, we just is having nightmares about Cloth right now, because they're already playing thin lines of all their basic energies, and they can't ever one-shot this guy. And we just penny loop over and over again and run them out of energies, which just seems pretty awesome. And the other Pokemon I have in A tier is the Toedscruel EX, which has an ability the same as the old Espeon VMAX from Fusion Strike, and then the attack does 80 and then 50 more for each of our bench Pokemon. That was Grass Energy on, if I remember correctly. So this has obvious synergy with the Fortress EX, so we can put energies on all of our Pokemon and then start swinging and hitting some pretty solid numbers into 80. Just the only thing is, like, Grass is, I mean, Fortress is good energy acceleration objectively, but getting up 2 prizes is not. So, like, maybe you could combine this with, like, turn 2 Iono. You don't really want to be playing Path to the Peak because we have a couple abilities going on here, but it does have a solid damage baseline. It can completely shut down Lost Mine and annoying effects like that. So I think there is some stuff here for Toedscruel, whether it be on its own or as a partner for something else. I don't know if it's going to be right now, but I do think Toedscruel will see some play eventually. And finally, that big bad Charizard EX sitting up there in S tier. I'm pretty sure that this card is going to be a pretty good card. Just being able to search your deck for all those fire energies, put them on your Pokemon. There's another Charizard EX in 151. I don't exactly recall what it did, but I just remember it being good. So I'll probably pop it on the screen here when I'm editing this afterwards. But yeah, I think if I remember correctly, like, I remember seeing some people talk about how good that card would be combined with this. And then there is the attack, which is just pretty solid in the late game, being able to hit for more depending on how many prizes your opponent has taken, and you're a dark type, so that's just really good right now to hit Gardevoir and Mew for weakness. So I think Charizard is far and away the best EX from the set, with probably Toedscruel being the second best. But what do you guys think of my Obsidian Flames tier list? Do you agree or disagree with any of my rankings in this video? Let me know in the comment section. Also, I will link in the description my tier list here if you want to make a tier list yourself. By all means, go right ahead. And if you like this kind of content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. I post stuff like this fairly frequently. So once again, just thank you guys so much for watching and getting all the way through the end of this video. I appreciate you guys so much. And this has been Alloutblitzle. I love you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.